Good evening, everybody. My name is Philip Graves. As a steering committee member of the Gibbs Planning Alliance and also a member of this church, I want to welcome everybody to Clear Springs. I'd like to thank the church staff for allowing us to use the sanctuary tonight, and also we got a couple other folks who are helping us run sound and video, so I want to thank them. The meeting tonight is not being live streamed, however we are recording, so we can share that out at a later time. One note, we will get out of here at 7:30. We have some guests who have other obligations, so we want to give them a chance to get to those. So we're going to keep to our schedule as much as we can. A little housekeeping. The restrooms are just outside these double doors that you came in through, so if you need those. Also, looking around, I don't think we're going to have too much of a problem tonight, but just remember that we are in the house of God, and just want to ask everybody to keep everything civil and cordial towards each other. I know we're all here because we love the Gibbs community. We may have differences of opinion, but let's just try to behave as best we can. So, speaking of which, the elected officials, I want to thank all of our Knox County, our state of Tennessee, anybody here that is an elected official or representing an elected official. Would you all please stand? I see a few of you dotted around. Very good. These folks are here to hear what you have to say. We're not going to put them on the spot tonight. There may be time for that later in another setting and another meeting, but tonight they're just here to kind of observe and hear what we have to say here in the Gibbs community. At this time, I'd like for Richie Beeler to come up. Richie is our 8th District Representative. He's also Chairman of the County Commission at this time. He's going to lead us in invocation.
Thank you, Philip, and thanks to everybody for coming and for those who were willing to organize this meeting and lead us. Would you bow your heads with me for a prayer? Father, thank you for who you are. And thank you, Lord, for the blessing of this community. We are so privileged, Lord, to live here, to have grown up here, many of us. And so we thank you for that. Lord, thank you for this house that you have provided for us to gather in. Lord, I pray a blessing upon this house and a blessing upon its pastors and its people. And Lord, upon this meeting, I pray, God, that a spirit of collective unity, of collective wisdom, of collective vision would come together here, and what's best for this community would be done to your honor and to your glory. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, I'm going to give everybody a little background on who we are and what we're looking to do here. The Gibbs Planning Advocates is a group of citizens who are concerned about the future of our community. We know growth is inevitable, but we've seen what has happened in other parts of the county when there's no foresight, when there's no planning, when there's basically just no plan going forward on how to develop those areas. And so we don't want that to happen in Gibbs any more than it already has. And so that's why we're gathering together. We don't represent a government agency or department. Our goal is to represent the Gibbs community. We've organized to advocate on behalf of the community to those who are in power who can help us keep Gibbs a wonderful place to live, to learn, to work, and to worship. As I mentioned, the people who you'll see tonight speaking, who are passing out microphones, who are up there, we're a part of a steering committee. All right, this is just the beginning. We've laid a very basic foundation for this group, but we need input. We need input from and help from the members of the community. And tonight we hope to start a conversation, and you'll get a chance to voice your opinion and help us chart a course for the future. In the weeks and months to come, you'll also have the opportunity to put your hand to the plow and get involved as well. At minimum, we hope you leave here hopeful that you will have a say in what our community looks like in the years to come. So the first part of this meeting is just going to be a few of our experts, I should say, who are going to come up and give you a little state of things as they exist here today in Gibbs and across Knox County a little bit. After that, we'll have microphones. We're going to have an open session where you can ask questions, where you can tell us what you think, what you'd like to see. You've got opportunities. I think on the handouts, you've got QR codes. There's a little tear-off. We've even got poster boards out there for you guys to write what you feel. And there's no structure to it. There's no system that we're putting in place. Just whatever you think, whatever questions you have, feel free and write those down, and we'll try to address those as best we can. So I want to introduce our moderators for this evening. First of all, we have Kevin Murphy, who is chair of the Knox County Planning Alliance. Kevin has been very helpful to us, and you will not find a more knowledgeable individual about this subject anywhere in Knox County. Not to put the pressure on you, Kevin. Next, we have Kim Frazier, who is a member of Hardin Valley Planning Advocates. She has been a help to us as well. And Lisa Starbuck is over here. She'll be helping out answer questions and passing out microphones. She is co-founder of the Knox County Planning Alliance and was also very involved and active in securing our new middle school just a few years ago. So that's the group, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We want to spend just about 10 minutes. We've got a few slides to kind of.
How's that, Steve?
Oh, all right. To give you some context about the Gibbs area and everything. So if we can go to the next slide. And this. Oh, actually, this is pretty good. I see a hand raised. Oh, never mind. Okay. Okay. I was just making sure. All right. Go back to that first quote there. This is one that I've seen that was used by some consultants that are getting ready to help Knox County redo its big general plan. And I like this quote so much because it makes sense. And the quote is, in the absence of local planning, someone else will make decisions for you. And that is so true. So the reason that you actually care to be here tonight is because you want to be involved in making the decisions for your community. Yes? Oh, yeah. Do my best. Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right, so next slide, or two slides. So just a short background briefing, and these don't show up as well on the big screen. They show up a little bit better on the computer monitor, but if you flip back and forth, Gibbs has changed a lot in the last 25 years. Besides going from black and white to full color, we've now, but in the 1995, you can see a lot of open farmland and open fields, hay fields and pastures on that one. In 2021, a chunk of those have been replaced by subdivisions. Some pastures have turned to forest, so the Gibbs area has changed a lot in the last 25 years, and the next 25 years are going to change even more. Next slide. So again, a bit of an eye chart, but just in terms of background, there is a planning framework in Knox County. We have a growth plan that sits at the very top level of things. It says how where the county should try and grow for the next 20 years. It's currently 20 years old, so it's up for a refresh. We have a general plan, which is a little bit more detailed, and that says where it gives some general guidelines for the county. And then we have sector plans, and again, I'm not going to spend too much. There's not a quiz on this at the end, I promise. But the sector plans are important because that's where the community really gets involved and speaks out. So if you go to the next slide, we do have that it's not quite apparent, but the growth plan is really important because that it designates two areas. It says that there's a rural area for the county and a planned growth area. And the planned growth area, that's that darker piece that comes out, and it comes out to Harbison's Crossroads, to the intersection Emory and Tazewell Pike, and a little bit farther. It goes just past the schools up Tazewell Pike, and it goes a little bit east on Emory Road, and it comes out. But what's really important for you to know here is that there's like this finger of planned growth that comes out along Emory Road and comes out to Gibbs and then stops. Coreyton's in the rural area, places farther north are in the rural area, places farther south are in the rural area. But what you have here is this finger coming out, and one of the things that's happened is you've got 3 schools now right at the edge of that finger, right on the edge of that planned growth area to the rural area. Hardin Valley has the same issue, and that's why Kim is here from Hardin Valley. And Kim, do you want to get up here too? And we'll tag team some of this, raise your hand if you've been out to Hardin Valley in the last 5 years. All right, just about everybody's been out there. Raise your hand if it took you a long time to get through Hardin Valley because of traffic and stuff. All right, that's a lot of hands. They have got a lot of growth out there, and honestly, one of the reasons that I'm contacted and started trying to get a little bit of activation out here is Hardin Valley's seen explosive growth because they're right on the fringe of the growth area, or the rural area. They've got schools, 3 schools, elementary, middle, and high school that were built out there, and it is the exact same formula that Gibbs is facing right now. So what happened in Hardin Valley is, you've got the same kind of setup happening for the Gibbs area. And that's a message that I want you to hear because the growth pressure is about to happen. Next slide. So the most important one in terms of planning for this community are the sector plans. Those are and the graphics taken from the Planning Commission. By the way, the planning staff and the planning website has a ton of information on it. It's a great place to go. But there are 12 sectors, and we're in the northeast sector. That plan was last updated in 2015. There were 6 meetings in the area. One of them was at the Gibbs Rotarian Club on April 29th, 2015. There's one at the Coreyton Club, one at East Knox Elementary, and a few others. But that's the last time that there was an update. And what I want to show you is what is the most relevant part of that update, which is the next slide. Oh, wow, that's a real eye chart from here. I can't even read that. So this is centered on Harbison Crossroads. So you can see the cross kind of in the middle is Emory Road and Tazewell Pike. There is the sector plan does talk about that there's this intersection out here, there's some schools there, and the purple area they identify as, well, that would be a really good area for like some mixed use, a combination of some residential and some shopping and some office. So it gives, and potentially some higher density residential, like some apartments or condos or townhomes, higher density than the rest. So you have this area out here, and there's a page, I think it's page 66 of the sector plan that describes that. And that is the plan for Gibbs. That's all there is. There's not much more detail or fidelity. There's not a lot of call for. There's, I think, a sentence in there about does the Rotarian Park need some upgrades? But there's not a lot in there. What is highlighted in red, though, is a statement that said that was a recommendation that after the after the new middle school is built, then the community should work together, and it can involve planning staff, but the community should come up with a small area plan for Gibbs. So that was identified, and that was kind of like a next step that was identified in 2015. It hasn't happened yet, so really tonight is probably like maybe step one. I'm not part of the Knox County Planning organization. There's a professional planning staff and everything that does that. But this is kind of maybe, consider this step one of just trying to kick that effort off and to start putting at least a vision together, because it was identified that Gibbs should have a small area plan. All right. So that's kind of a little bit about why we're here. Can you go to next slide? Yep. Oh, and I wanted to tell you, there's one area that's got a really good community plan. I actually brought it here. The East Knox community, they got together back about, this is I think 2016, and they put together a community plan. East Knox is the area, if you consider around like Midway Road interchange on I-40, and then they kind of go down towards Seven Islands and Tuckahoe, that side of the county. They're really concerned about the impact of the Midway Business Park that was put in, and so they put a community plan in there to put a vision together, and it was really well done and identified a lot of things that the community cared about, and that's something similar that perhaps we can get the professional planning staff to help engage and work on in this area. But it is a plan. I think our challenge is that a plan is a piece of paper, but then you've got to do some work to implement it. It's got a lot of implementation things in it, but none of it's been done. There's like some recommendations on some ways to update the zoning ordinance and some other items, and so that's it's a good piece of paper, but then the next step after you put your vision together is to implement it. So that's some work that takes some legwork by the community to go talk and raise that up as a priority to get some attention on it. All right, next slide. But I want to give that to you as an example. Now, we do fit in, and to give you some context, the county they're just started the update of the general plan. That's the big plan that's under the growth. The general plan is also, it's the general plan plus all the sector plans, but they're just starting that right now. The initiative is called Advance Knox, and it's expected to be about a 2-year-long process. There's a tremendous amount of public engagement. The first of that is supposed to start in March, according to the timelines. They're going to do, they're going to look at land use. We're going to have the first full comprehensive countywide transportation plan for the roads. And they've also got a component to do a full parks and recreation plan. So this is really big. This is the mayor and county commission have put a lot of weight behind this. This is and Commissioner Beeler, I heard you, state Monday night that this will probably be the most important thing we do, on commission, and I agree with that. This is really important. That is going to be a countywide effort, and one thing that will help Gibbs is if Gibbs has already started to think about what you want to see in that plan, then you're going to be ready when that public engagement starts. The first phase is called listening, and if you've already started thinking about some of your ideas and some of the concerns and what you want the area to be like, you're going to be a lot more effective when you go and you participate in that process. So that's why we're here. All right, So Kim, if you want to come up here and talk a little bit about Hardin Valley. The reason Kim spent a lot of time building a vision out in Hardin Valley. And that's, and we've got a slide here. So do you want to talk to this slide a little bit?
Thank y'all for showing up. Just to tag team with Kevin, citizen engagement is really important. And I wasn't paying attention for a long, long time until one experience changed that for me. And I could not eat lunch with my kids in their cafeteria because my schools were overcrowded. So I started asking a lot of questions and even more questions and trying to find answers and build relationships. And in all of that, I learned very quickly that I needed to pay attention and that growth was coming to my community. And I needed to get familiar with the language that's used, the plans, the studies, the terminology, and that's really what this is about. And so one thing we did was formed an organized community group called Hardin Valley Planning Advocates. When we did that, we found that there are tons of pocket communities throughout Knox County that have different visions and different needs and different expectations from their local government. And so through that, we really worked hard to get schools built. We saw that there was a need. We spent 2 years, a lot of work, a lot of sleepless nights. That's where I met Lisa, that's where I met Kevin, and we advocated for a Hardin Valley Middle School, a Gibbs Middle School, and then a Northwest Elementary School in the 5-year capital plan, and then another school in the west area. So in that, we had lots of conversations with our citizens, and these were things that we identified that we would like to see in our community. And so we wanted to just share that with you because we feel like we all really want the same thing. So we want long-term planning to manage growth. Growth is good. I want to say that again. Growth is good. We are asking that it's intentional. That's all. We want intentional growth with coordinated infrastructure. And so that's a lot about what this communication is. How do we balance it all? Increase walkability and connectivity. Recreational use. That's very important for our kids, for our families. We love to be able to walk from one subdivision to the other and not worry about the safety of our children and our families. Road improvements. I don't know about y'all, but my roads over in Hardin Valley, they need a little bit of help. And we're going to do that. We're so excited about this administration and county commission and the leadership team that has been tasked with the creation of this comprehensive plan. It's going to address all of this. Every plan, every study that's ever been conducted by Knox County will be taken into consideration. So we just want to prepare you for that and get excited about it. Community facilities. Hardin Valley struggles. We need a gathering place. Community centers, use of your churches and schools. People love to gather. It's what makes your community unique. Parks and amenities. Again, going back to recreational, health and wellness, that will also be a component. Preservation of rural character. Again, Hardin Valley has a beautiful landscape, but we're seeing that landscape change and change very quickly. Hillside, ridgetops, they're changing. We want to protect that. We want to identify what do we want to preserve and conserve. schools and rezoning. It's very hard in a community when your child is rezoned. It's a part of growth. It may impact your community, it may not, but it's something that needs to be a part of the conversation. And then more businesses. We want our citizens to have success and prosper and have opportunities. And so you want to set your community up to do just that. Be ready to open for business. So those are a couple of things that we identified, and I think you will probably feel the same way about your community.
All right. This is totally an eye chart, so I'm just going to read it, but this is setting up what everybody's heard about the housing market. You hear the news reports about how much home prices are up, how scarce they are. Some of the things, and this is information that Kim put together for Hardin Valley briefing, but local realtors report 45% fewer homes for sale compared to this time last year, and I think that stat's 6 months old already. The median purchase price is up 45% over the last 5 years. 50% of homes sold in March of last year were under contract in less than 6 days while paying over market price. Cash buyers account for 19.6% of sales, and that's going up. The housing market is going crazy, and Kim and I, we sit down and we talk with some of the developers because we have a lot of common interest. And when we actually sit down, community and development and all, there's 80 to 85% shared interest. There really is. And one of the things they let us know is, in Kim's area in Hardin Valley, the land prices have gotten up to $35,000 to $45,000 an acre for vacant land, for farmland that they're looking at for subdivisions, and that really bumps up the cost of their development to the point where it's out of market price. So now they're looking for other places that are less expensive, and if the land in this area is less expensive, then then a subdivision developer is going to come out here and start looking for that. They'll look in other places in the county, and they've even they're doing a lot of business in Loudoun County and Blount County and Sevier County now too, because simply of land costs. So just for awareness, understand that if your area of the county has less expensive land, then you're going to. It used to be that it was too far out. Well, now it's prime land because it lets them put a house out at the price point that they want to get it out at. So this is all just context for background for you to let you know that the growth pressure is intense. There is and if you go to any briefing, from the Chamber of Commerce, from the Realtor Association, from any national, one of the big things that they're looking for is lot availability. So they are looking for how can they get more lots to build on, and so any place that has vacant land and looks nice and green and open is going to be a prime pressure point at this point. In the entire county is just about is kind of open for that. Where it wasn't economical to develop that property 10 years ago, today the economics work out to make it developable. So that's why having a vision of what you want, what you want to grow, how you want to grow, and what you want to preserve too is important. And I can talk some about preservation during the community forum as well. Next slide, I think. Oh, well, okay. This is an eye chart, but it was something we looked at a little bit more in the last. The county budget document is a very, very large document, and I feel sorry for everybody that has to read through it or even try and skim through it. But I was looking at the capital. They have a capital budget for improving roads and for sidewalks and for new roads and such. And what struck out at me is that first of all, they've got a list, over the next 5 years of what the county's looking to do, and they've got a lot of projects on there. There's not any that are related to the Gibbs area. Now, there is some widening work planned for Emory Road. That's a state road, so that's state TDOT money and TDOT projects. But currently, the county doesn't have anything, at least as far as I can tell, that was in the last year's budget on the books for the next 5 years. And they don't have any unallocated money for the next 2 years. Now, starting, I think, in year 2024, They've got $2 million of road project money that hasn't been spoken for, and then it bumps up to $12 million a year, so they've got some more flexibility. But the other thing to know is that the county has, its capital budget for roads and sidewalks each year fluctuates between $15 and $18 million, somewhere in that range. So that's what they have. Kim and the Hardin Valley community got together 3 years ago in 2019, and they had a robust public forum and process. And how many people did you have show up at like the mobility plan meeting?
I'm not sure of the actual number, but it was the largest study in all of them.
So largest study in all of Knox County, largest attendance, and in the hundreds of people showed up for that meeting. And they've got a really good plan identified for Hardin Valley. There are, it's 10 years out. They looked at, what the current needs are, what's going to happen growth-wise for the next 10 years, what sidewalks do they need, what new roads do they need, where do they need improvements, widening, pedestrian safety, all that stuff. And then they've got a great list of projects, and it's actually ranked in priority order, so that's fantastic. The scary part is that the bottom line, there's a sum, and it's how much is that going to cost? And that's $140 million worth of road projects that are needed just for Hardin Valley. Our county budget each year is about $18 million. So if you took the entire county budget for about 8 years, they'd actually fix Hardin Valley, but nothing else would get done. And of course, that's not fair. So we have a budget challenge as well that is part of our overall challenge. I wanted to give that to you as context because that, at some point that will come up in discussions, and that's something to be aware of. So this is the last slide before we go into like just an open forum, and I'll have Phil come out, help guide that along with Kim, and we'll try and just facilitate. But the current situation for Gibbs, you've got a rocket, red hot housing market. The Gibbs area is very attractive for that. We don't have a lot of policies on the books that encourage farmland to be either preserved or encourage lower zoning, density or stuff. And I live on a farm, and there's absolutely no incentive for me to keep it a farm, except that I like that farm, at least in terms of what our county plan is. I don't get any benefit from having a farm and being agricultural. I just, the only reason it's a farm is because I'm interested in it. So that is actually an area where if the Gibbs community is interested in preservation, we've got some grassroots stuff that we can do to start that, and I'm happy to talk more about that. But for the Gibbs, we really think that you need a small area vision to start percolating and developing now, and that's going to be used to feed that whole big general plan update, the Advanced Knox project. So that's one thing, and then the other thing is just simply a way to organize and advocate for your vision. I will also say, organization advocacy is also tricky because there's a lot of people in this room, and when it comes down to individual issues, people have different opinions and perspectives, and it's not always something. Kim experiences in Hardin Valley, and we've experienced it with other places. Sometimes the planning group, will just provide information and give you context and tell you how it's going, but won't take a stand. Now, if something is completely against like the vision that's been adopted, then maybe the planning group would. But just to give you an idea, there are, when it comes down to individual issues, it's sometimes you can't advocate as a group because there are different opinions, and we absolutely respect that. But yeah, all right, we'll leave this eye chart up there for some topics. But we want, when Crystal and Nadine and Phil, chatted with us, the idea was, well, let's just have a community forum. Have you talk about, what are some of the concerns that you have? What do you want Gibbs to look like? Like, for growth, what kind of residential or dining or stores do you want? What kind of community improvements do you think are needed? Greenways, sidewalks. Are there emergency services or social services that are lacking, that need improvement? Same thing on utilities, and also schools. Are there some upgrades needed at the schools? We're really excited about the pedestrian bridge. I know that's a huge project and very incredibly important to every kid in the community. And And also, what's the character that you want? Do you want subdivisions? Do you want like a town center type thing? How important is rural preservation to you? Are there areas you want to do? And when I work for my day job is not this. My day job is actually cybersecurity software. And we do retrospectives about once a month on my team. And one of the questions that we ask, it's really helpful, is what do we need to start doing? What do we want to stop doing? And what should we continue doing? And those are some good questions just to frame up an overall discussion. And in that, Phil, do you want? Phil's got this marker for the scribe. We've got a few people with microphones out here, but I want to open it up. Does anybody have, just an initial statement? Either concern about Gibbs or questions too. But does anybody have an initial thought? Yes, ma'am.
Last year under the Planning Commission, out here at Edwards Place, they had a lot of issues with a development that was coming in. And it was learned that in the two developers before that, the commission had put in promises that they had made the community before they built it. Well, unfortunately, they put the promises in there, but who is the one responsible for making sure the developers do what they are supposed to do?
Ooh, that's a tough question. So it comes down to where, when it's a promise that's put in, it comes down to where they put that promise. Was it like a condition of approval? If so, then that probably goes to the planning staff and the county staff to enforce. I am familiar with the Edwards Place one, and part of it was the developer had made a promise, like, you're going to have a clubhouse with a pool, and they showed that, on a map, but that's not something that the county staff enforces. That if a developer promises that they'll put a community center in or a pool, the county doesn't require a bond, to come out for that, to make sure that that's put in. And I know that residents were really upset about that, because the developer then goes out of business and then changes hands and the plans change.
And that was a good example too of the citizens speaking up. We got involved with county engineering, with the planning people, and the developer realized pretty quickly that they were up for a fight, and so they kind of backed off on what they originally wanted to do. I think they originally wanted apartments, and then now it's become single-family residential, right? So there's some middle ground, but we got to be able to speak up about it.
Got a lot of active speakers.
Now, y'all have to practice to get more vocal than this, because we really do want to hear from you, and the county wants to hear from you. So when we start diving into this advanced initiative, you really do need to use your voice. So questions, concerns, anything that you're just sitting there thinking about.
One thing I think is there's a perception that can't fight City Hall, that why should I get involved because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. Well, sometimes that is the perception, and I've been involved in enough issues to know that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And I think that what we accomplished with the Gibbs Middle School is an example of sometimes you win, and win big. And so a lot of it, the reason I think that Gibbs Middle School happened was because we were able to activate the community and get people involved and get them to overcome apathy or the feeling that you can't really accomplish anything. And I have learned that you can if you can get people to participate and to overcome their reluctance to fight City Hall. It doesn't always have to be a fight either. It can just be advocating for something that you want.
How about a question to you all? With all of the different levels of infrastructure, if you could prioritize them, What would be your number one priority as far as infrastructure improvement or improvements in your area? Anyone? Sidewalks. What else? Roads. Which roads? Emory Road. How about Tazewell Pike? What else? Uh-huh.
I didn't really want this, but where we're developing the subdivisions, the roads that these subdivisions are coming in on are horrible now. So now you add another 100 homes in there, and you're really making a mess of our roads. School buses travel those roads. You can't pass now with 2 cars in many of the roads in our rural area. So you put a bus with a bunch of children on there, you're really putting a lot of danger. So our roads need to be looked at way before we start doing all this development, if that's possible.
That's a great comment.
One concern I had, because, you know, we recently had another rezoning just down the road, and obviously they were asking for medium density, and they came in at like 3 units per acre, which was well under what they were asking for. But the concern was that we already had 3 developments approved under construction, but nobody's moved into them yet. We still, all that density, the traffic, the kids, everything that goes along with it is coming. It's not here yet, but yet they're still approving because it's in the planned growth area. So why not? It's in the planned growth, so let's just do it. Okay, rubber stamp it, it's done. So there's not, okay, wait a minute, we've done this much, let's wait. Like there's no slow and steady. It's just, okay, a developer buys a piece of property, comes in with the option, and okay, sure, why not?
So, yes, and so what I'm hearing from you is that you would like some metrics to be considered in the creation of the comprehensive plan, maybe some tools and resources for our decision makers so that they can look at the feasibility of a development, the cost of infrastructure improvements, the cost to our citizens, so that they can make better informed decisions. And you're right, Adam. One thing that we have found is that our decision makers sometimes are not aware of what they have already approved. It's not information that's readily available to them. And so that's one thing that we're excited about, because this comprehensive plan will do that. And it will provide our decision makers with information that they can make better informed decisions. So that's a great point. And the reason that I can really relate to that is because my community in Hardin Valley, we just recently commissioned planning to give us those numbers. And these are numbers that we shared with our decision makers. And right now in the Hardin Valley area, the northwest sector, between the Planning Commission, County Commission, there are nearly 4,400 homes that have been approved but unbuilt. Yeah. So what you're saying is we don't want to experience that. And that's why you have to speak up, and that's why in this process, your leaders are going to listen to you. We've been a part of those conversations, and they're just as excited about the creation of this plan as we are. But that is really important, that we need to better equip our decision makers with information. So tools and resources, I think that's really important.
I have a couple of things I'd like to bring up. Number one, as far as Tazewell Pike itself is concerned, we've been out here, we've lived here now for about, this is our 21st year. A couple of years ago, my wife was almost killed when she was run off the road into a front yard of another house up here. Luckily, she just missed a power pole. It did a lot of damage to the car, and she didn't get hurt other than shaken up a lot.
And a crepe bird saved my life.
Yeah, but that's just, we have seen so many accidents on Tazewell Pike because of power poles, people hitting power poles. If you've ever driven, we've commented a number of times, driving from Jacksboro Pike in Fountain City all the way out to here, it's one utility pole right next to another one on both sides of the road. I, for one, don't understand why more of these utilities aren't buried. Number one, we don't need all those poles. Those are just death traps waiting to happen. I don't think a week goes by if somebody doesn't take out a pole. And when somebody takes out a pole, somebody either gets badly hurt or somebody dies. I think that needs to go. But the other thing is, right next to us, we live in Campbell's Point subdivision up here, just past the schools. Just before the subdivision, our subdivision, there's a new one plan going in there with 140 houses or something like that.
We had to fight MPC a little bit. and
We
won,
fought
we
MPC
think.
on the initial plan. They were gonna put like 4 or 5 houses per acre, and we got that reduced. Number one is because the MPC did not know, they were not aware that there are caves underneath where that subdivision's going. And a lot of that is also marshland. So they couldn't build like they thought they were gonna build. So that whole end of it now is gonna be much larger lots and fewer homes on it. So we won somewhat there. But one of the things that I just found last week is they're mentioning there's gonna be a left turn lane on Tazewell Pike going into that subdivision. I'm here to tell you, there's no room to put a left turn lane on Tazewell Pike anywhere near the entrance to that subdivision. So I don't know what they're planning. But roads definitely have to be taken into account.
Okay, what I'm more concerned with right now is children of this community that is growing up watching drug addicts, drug addiction, drug houses, and we live next to one, right beside one. For 7 years, we've been trying to get these people out of the neighborhood. We've been calling every official we know, and no one does anything. My grandson gets off the bus right in front of this drug house and almost got run over last year of people flying out of their driveway. You just don't know the mess we've been in this last 7 years of this drug house. And that's my main concern of children of this community, what they're growing up watching.
Okay. I would like to point out that both Embry Road and Tazewell Pike are state roads, so it's not county necessarily, it's TDOT. The county does work with TDOT, but when you're dealing with the state, that's a whole different thing. I totally agree that there ought to be a turn lane all the way from Fountain City, from Smithwood, all the way to the Union County line, but TDOT is who we need to work with, and that's your state senators and your state representatives. But what my main point is, this is an election year. Look at the people running, talk to them, say, what are you going to support? How are you going to help us? And then vote. If you don't vote, don't whine about things, is my point of view, okay?
Exactly, Becky.
Is it on?
But everybody has to vote. Everybody has to stand up and their voice be heard. Oh. Everyone has to stand up and their voices be heard by voting. I was going to say, my family has lived here for 100 years. From Graves Lane at the railroad tracks all the way to Tazewell Pike. Where would you put another subdivision? There's not room to do it. These subdivisions are going in. There's no way to get in and out safely. You have children on buses. You don't always have a parent there to meet that bus, and that's part of the way life is now. But I would be definitely against apartment houses, definitely, very much against apartment houses.
Okay, here's another question for you all that we hear this discussion quite a bit at Planning Commission, County Commission, and it's the word density. A lot of people are afraid of that word. What does that mean to you? And would you consider a development in your community? Let's say it has higher density, but they're clustered in a smaller area that preserves and conserves a lot of the greenway. What do you think about that? Or do you feel like this community, with the landscape and the rural area, that you, again, you like lower density and bigger lots? I just want to hear from you.
Okay. I'm not good at speaking into a microphone, but can you hear me? But did you turn it off?
I probably did.
Okay. I'm not good at speaking on a microphone, and I'll try to get through this without crying. But I've lived here all my life. If anybody knows, I live on Thompson School Road in front of a huge farm that used to be the airport. If anybody ever lived in this area years ago, part of my family had an airport with little planes that would fly in and out. If there's still some here that have been here, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You can still see the orange things on the power lines. I'm 50 years old. I only moved next door. My parents had 2 acres, so I didn't move. I've never moved away. Through the years, I have seen so many farms, so much stuff in here change from when I was a kid to where I'm at today. And I have never seen so much change in the last 3 years that it is absolutely scaring me, because I have never wanted to move away until this past year. But that huge farm that I live across of that used to be an airport, my aunt and uncle lived there, and they passed away. And then it stayed in the family, but it's the Wilson farm. And as she's gotten older, she feels like she needs to sell it. Well, back in July and August, I was home that day when they put that sign up. I have tried to get a farmer to buy that land because my horses were on it, my dad's cows were on it. But the land is set at over $2 million. What farmer could even buy that? $2 million. I've even asked, is there a rich farmer? You know, I have tried to reach out to the police department. You know, no more subdivisions. Let it be used for something, for what God intended for it to be. I mean, what are we going to, I have a donkey. That hay comes off of that field. What are we going to feed our farm animals when our farms are gone? I don't know if there's any way we can rezone it to where we can keep some of these farms. But there's a contract on this farm right now, and I'm trying every which way to, can we rezone this? Can we stop that sale? Because once that farm's gone, I mean, it's 108 acres, and I know what it's going to be, and I live right across from it. It's not about me, it's about preserving what we have left, because we're not going to have anything left if we don't, you know, if we sit back and let these developers, you don't know how many real estate agents and how many developers that I have told them, get off the land, because I've always helped take care of it. So we have to make a stand, because if we don't, we're not going to be able to get out of our driveway. I mean, that's just how I feel. And like I said, it's not about me, it's about our farm animals. So, but thank you. I've got some over here.
Okay, yeah.
I
I think that it is going to grow. I know it's going to grow. We got our red light, we got our schools, and now, you know, as she said, land values are high. My concern is what I hear is broken promises or no oversight. Every time it rains, we're adversely affected because the runoff of a subdivision where this developer and that developer, and there was no oversight, and all the water comes rolling over our property, and we can't even get out. So it's going to happen. We just got to get involved and watch what's going on and how it does impact us. I mean, if a promise is made, I mean, where is the oversight? They don't put in the proper drainage. We all get affected. It's just one little thing. This very property. We can't do this with a wink and a nod for a friend. We really do need to get involved.
I'd like to just talk about for a minute, I know Kevin mentioned it, but one, you know, there's always a tension between development and property rights, right? You know, some people say, it's my property and I should be able to do what I want with it, and I understand that. And I think that a lot of people, and a lot of the things that we're facing in Gibbs is because, as you said, you know, people pass on and they leave it to their kids, and the kids live somewhere else, or they're not interested in farming, or something like that. And so they want to get the value of the property that their family owns. And, you know, that's an understandable thing. I have a farm. And, you know, I think that your land value, you know, is important. But what you may not understand, or what the owners may not know, is that there are ways that they can get the value of the development out of their land and still keep it as farmland and still live on it and still leave it to their children to live on. There are programs like the USDA, if it's prime farmland and prime soils, they will pay you to keep the land as a farm. And that's one example. Kevin Murphy is very knowledgeable about that, and there are people here in the county who, there's conservation organizations who have an interest in that kind of idea, and, you know, they will help families make good decisions about their land. And so I think that educating people about that and making it known that that's an option for people to be able to preserve their farmland, but yet get the value of their land, you know, out of the land, that it doesn't have to just be sold for a subdivision.
Yeah. And yeah, I know several folks that have done that program, not necessarily in this area, but out in West Tennessee and Middle Tennessee, farmers have adopted that. But getting back to the elections and, you know, promises are made, you know, back in 2015, we did this study, we did the sector plan. And there are several people in this room that were part of that process. And, you know, there were several things in this sector plan that they said, okay, we want this, we want a middle school, we want that. And it's almost like, and I don't want to put words in our county's government's mouths, but, you know, it's almost like, hey, we gave you what you wanted, now you take this too. No, we also put in the sector plan what we didn't want. We wanted to protect the rural feel of Coreyton. And yes, we call it Gibbs. It's still part of Coreyton. This is Coreyton. This is still part of that same area. It's just Gibbs population grew a lot faster than the rest of the Coreyton. But we still wanted to protect the rural feel. And there were specific things talking about farmland and the open areas that they recommended. You know, cluster developments. Don't develop out 3 units per acre and develop the whole flipping thing and pave it and put it in little quarter-acre yards. You know, cluster it to one end, preserve the rest of it to protect the scenery and leave the other for agricultural purposes. But it's almost like the the MPC or whoever's approving it and enforcing it later on, the developer comes in with a concept plan, okay, yep, that works, and move on. They don't say, no, we don't like this concept, we want you to do this in this area, can you do that? They don't hold them accountable for their concept plan. They say, okay, yep, that works. And it costs the county more because they're now adopting the roads, maintaining the roads, and things like that, where if they'd clustered in one end, they're not maintaining the entire property. It also costs less on utilities because you're not running those utilities as far. It's just, when we say we don't want something, it should mean just as much as the things we say we do want.
That's a great point. We've got to start wrapping it up just a little bit, so we'll take one more comment and question.
I just want to go back to the Gibbs Middle School. That didn't start in 2015. My daughter's 34. She was in kindergarten, and we were fighting for that school. She never got to go to it, or any of my kids. Does our voice really count? Because you mentioned East Knox. They fought hard against that plan for that industrial park. Got snuck in anyway. So I think that's what probably a lot of us is wondering. Does our opinion even matter? Because you're going to do it anyway. I mean, I've been here 53 years. I moved 2 doors down. I never left the community either.
Thank you.
This is more a question. I came back a couple of weeks ago from LMU, and I was told immediately there's a parcel of land close to the intersection, and there's going to be 9 houses to the acre. What is going on with that story? There's something involved because I found it in the MPC.
Yeah. So that parcel, which is right out there actually, is so the Planning Commission last month recommended it for 9 units per acre. It's up to County Commission then in their February meeting to decide if they want to approve it. However, there's also now, we've seen a plan has actually been submitted for what those lots look like on that parcel. And that plan is for detached single-family housing, and it works out to only like 3.1 houses per acre. So I actually don't know if they're going to continue to ask for the rezoning at a higher density or if they're going to ask to reduce it. It looks like they've put in a concrete plan for single family at 3.1 units per acre. And so anyways, some request will come to County Commission in their February meeting, which I think it's February 23rd, February 22nd, something like that. It's Tuesday after President's Day. It's an odd day. But yeah.
On WVLT this morning, the reporter said that, okay. On WVLT this morning, it was the first time I heard it, they said that they were going to build the pedestrian overhang over here, a pedestrian walkway, and they were going to name it after Sergeant Ryan Knass. And they said, this is my question, they said it would be done by the end of the year.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought, and they also said, one other thing they said was, I'm sorry, they also said that part of Tazewell Pike would be renamed for him. I just want.
That's breaking news, but yeah. Well, that's quite a nice honor. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You're going, okay.
I'll be really fast. I'm a pastor in the community, and so obviously as a pastor, growth is good for a church. Every home represents a new soul. Every soul represents another family you can help, another child you can reach out to. But I'm also a citizen of the community, having moved here. So as a father and as a dad, my largest concern for this community is with all of the development happening, the development on Beeler Road, the 2 developments, on the one that's already started on Thompson School, the second possibility, the one down at Campbell's Point, the one here. My concern, listen, I have to go to take my kids to the two public schools. I have to literally, from Majors Road to Gibbs, have to go 15 minutes out of the way to save the time to get to the school just from going to the intersection and hanging a left. And so I'm in a catch-22. I love to see a growing community, but as a citizen, I just feel like there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be considered before developments just pop up everywhere, because it is almost virtually impossible to get. You've never experienced anything till you've tried to do that four-way at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it can get frustrating. It can get extremely, it's very frustrating. And so to go all the way around like that makes it extremely complicated. And so as a kind of a middle-of-the-road guy, as a church guy that wants to see a community grow, but also as a citizen, I just think the infrastructure has got to be considered with so much new development and no way to logistically function. It just makes it virtually impossible. So that's what I would like to see those that are making these decisions to deeply consider, is just the process in which we're getting there is extremely important. So
Over in Hardin Valley, during the school hours, we call that family Frogger. Kind of take your life into your own hands, trying to get into the school. So to wrap things up, I want to really encourage you all to get connected with your local government. There are ways that you can get monthly emails from the Planning Commission. You can sign up to receive the monthly agenda. You can look at it, read it every month, look for your district, look for your areas. We do that. And then that's something that you can send questions to your Gibbs Planning Advocates and ask, are you watching this? What do you know about this? We are concerned about this. That's one way that you can do that. Also, the county has launched a registry for citizens through the Department of Constituent Services. So go in and register your home or your subdivision. Then you can get, again, on an information list, and those are ways to connect. Know your representation. Know that you have a district commissioner, and then you have 2 at-large commissioners. So really, you have 3 possible voices that you need to establish relationships with. And I know a lot of them, and they're pretty approachable. We don't always agree, but they're pretty approachable. And if you don't hear from them, again, that's when you go back to your Planning Advocates group, and you say, I need some help. I need some help, and we will help you. You know, that's why we formed Knox County Planning Alliance. We're kind of an umbrella over all of these little pocket community groups, and we just try to help when we can. We give you information, we help you through the process, we help you navigate, because it can be very overwhelming, it can be very intimidating. We know, we've been there. Again, we've all been right where you are. 7 years ago, I was right where you are. And so we just want to share what we've learned. Again, we're not experts, but we understand where you've been. So to wrap it up, I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank y'all for coming out on this cold night and sharing your time with us, because we value you. We really do. And if there's any way that we can help you, please reach out.
Thanks. And we've got some slides. Phil, I'll turn it over to you at the very end here to wrap us up. But yeah, Phil, y'all want some helpers. It's you and Nadine and Crystal, and you need some people to help. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, more than anything, when you leave here, go and talk to your friends, your family. This is a good turnout for our first meeting, I think, but I think the next meeting, which will probably be not too long from now, maybe in a month or two, we need to double that. We need to get some people involved and ready to do what needs to be done. Anytime there's a development that goes in, Planning Commission, County Commission, they look at the public feedback in the forum. We need to be organized about that. We need to be intentional in making sure we're sending out those messages. I grew up in this community. I've lived at the corner of Carnes and Barker Road my entire life. My family's been there, like our friend over here, over 100 years. I remember being excited when I was a kid because, oh my gosh, IGA's building a new building. Oh, we're getting a bank. That seemed so exciting back then, and now that excitement has turned to fear and dread every time I see something new happening without a plan. And that's what we're all about. We're not here to tell anybody what to do with their property. We just want to get a plan so we can take it to county commission, so we can take it to planning, so we can take it to the mayor, whoever has got the say-so to make sure that we're being heard. So, do you have something else?
Yeah, the last couple of thoughts I want to say is Kim has a saying that she taught me early on, which I really like, which is land use is very emotional. And that's something, it's one of the hardest things. And not only for you as a community, but also for our elected leaders. And I want to acknowledge that. I know our county commissioners, they have to deal with this, and it's a tough issue, and it's not, land use is not black and white. There is so much gray in it. Our planning commissioners deal with that as well, the staff, and we have really great people on staff at the planning office, and we have great people on staff at the codes department and the building administration department in the county, and they work their tail off, because if you've also noticed, the county runs pretty lean, so staffs have gotten smaller, but we've got all this development work running. So I want to acknowledge too, our staff. They do a lot of work. They will answer your phone call if you call. They just don't get a lot of calls. Instead, things blow up online. And so, call the codes department and building people have great people to help out. Planning staff has really good people. Your elected leaders usually will answer the phone or an email. I found them to be very responsive, and it is hard decisions for them. So I want to also acknowledge and appreciate them for that. The hard part is amongst all those priorities, because the county has a lot of things going on. They deal with schools, they deal with law enforcement, deal with employees that pay issues. They deal with budget and taxes. They've got a lot of stuff going on, and land use is generally the one that's down low on the totem pole. They just deal with the rezonings case by case. So that's why it's important to come up with more of a vision, and then tell them we need to change the vision and the rules underneath it. We have a vision. Adam, you had a really good point. In the sector plan, we've got some vision. And like in that East Knox plan, there's some vision, but the rules, the zoning ordinance underneath it hasn't changed, and that's kind of the next step. It's how do we implement it? So they'll need to hear from you that that's important. That's one of the things that a planning advocates group can do, is it starts to mature. You can start to say, okay, we're going to organize, and we're going to say this is something we really want to need implemented, and you can get a lot of signatures, and you can have a pretty powerful message, and say, if you get like 500 people that go to that call up the commissioner and say, we'd really like to see this. That's powerful. So that's how you make change. We had some feedback. Start trying to figure out, how do we try to coalesce all that and everything. There's ways to sign in. If you haven't, there's an email list they're putting together. I know. So if you sign in, you can get on the email list. There's also a QR code on your flyer to fill out like a survey where you can just leave more comments. There's also a post up, a web page that's got the slides from this meeting, and we'll send that out an email to everybody that signed up, but there's a post that's got the slides and the survey and how to contact everybody, so we've got all that set up for you, to give you that information. And step one was, coming out and showing up tonight. I know there's a lot of people that are sick tonight, not feeling well, or, isolating, and, so I'm sure that impacted turnout, but that's okay. This was a really great start.
That's it. Yeah. Appreciate you guys coming. Sorry, get over here. Thank you for y'all coming. We'll get notice out on Facebook and other outlets whenever we decide to schedule our next meeting. Have a good night. Thank you.